So I turned 23 last week, and I wanted to talk about my feelings around it because I am still in the mindset of like a 17 or 19-year-old. Like, I feel like my brain hasn't changed all that much. Not that I didn't learn a lot and change in different ways, but the voice inside my head hasn't changed, which is really weird to me because I always assumed when you get older and you get more mature that like the voice inside your head will change, but mine hasn't. And I have always had this thing where I feel like I need to be successful and do like my big thing when I'm really young because time runs out. I don't know. I always felt like if you're extraordinary, you do things young, which is obviously not the case, and most people end up being successful around like 40, 50, etc. But I've always had this thing about me that I've always had this thing where I feel like I'm in crisis if people my age are doing better than me. Not that I'm like jealous necessarily. Jealousy isn't the word for it, but it's more like they can do it, why can't I? So I feel happy for them, but at the same time I'm like, it feels like an added weight on my shoulders because it's like, why can't I have moved that far? So since turning 23, I've kind of acknowledged that I'm like fully in my 20s now, not that I wasn't before, and I keep contradicting myself. I totally get that. I keep thinking about what aging means to me and how when you're a teenager you kind of feel invincible and like age and life is kind of out of reach and you're like secluded in your own little bubble. But now that I'm out of college and I'm doing my own thing and I'm starting my own company and I'm doing all this stuff that's like feels so much like free falling and free swimming, I find that at times I'm very unsure of myself and there's this kid voice in my brain telling me like, what are you doing? Back up. Which is weird because I have a lot of confidence, but at the same time it's almost like, what am I doing? Most of the time. And I'm kind of winging it, and I assume a lot of people are winging it, but regardless, it doesn't make it any less scary or comfortable to be doing that. And one thought that like kept popping up into my head about turning 23 was that I'm aging as a woman and how I don't necessarily have the luxury that men do, in the sense that I feel like when men age, they keep their boyishness about them. Like, we attribute this kind of like frat bro-y attitude to any guy. The guy can be 60 and he can still, behave like he's in college. But with women, there's a completely different association with age. There's a sense of like maturity that needs to come along with it. Not that I feel so much pressure to mature or that I'm immature to begin with, but I don't know, it's hard to feel secure in yourself when you feel like aging in a sense is like taking something away from you. Like, it's taking my girlishness, my youth, the spark away from me, which is like a really gross thought that I don't necessarily buy into, but I had it regardless. And I just wonder if it holds any significance for me. There's also like the expectations that I have for myself when I get older are so much bigger. I just remember telling myself when I was like 16, 17, I'm like, oh, you're gonna get married by 25, you'll have your first kid by like 27 the latest. Like, as I approach those ages, I realize how young and inexperienced I feel and how life just happens so fast, and I could not possibly predict all the things that have happened to me even within the last year. And I know that the rest of life is just as unpredictable as that. Yes, it's exciting, but it's also so nerve-wracking. And for myself, I expect a kind of maturity, and like I almost expect myself to be more prepared for everything that life is going to throw at me, and I don't feel that way at all. And in terms of a sense of direction, I have things that I want to do, but I don't necessarily feel a sense of direction or like clarity. I'm just kind of doing stuff and throwing shit at the wall and hoping that something works out and that like my passion is enough to drive things forward. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll succeed. And what will it mean if like I turn around at 30 and I realize I've yet to do anything that I'm like super proud of or that's gone anywhere? Like, obviously it doesn't actually matter and I have this whole life to live, but the other side of my brain is telling me that that is like devastating if I haven't accomplished everything that I want to accomplish by like 30. It's just ridiculous, but it's still this kind of like self-limiting belief that keeps entering my brain. But I don't want it to seem like my turning 23 has been like negative. I actually realized on the day of that I didn't necessarily have any negative feelings towards it. I was surrounded by my friends. I was doing work that I love. It was just a very symbolic day for me. And the things that I was doing were symbolic of the way that my life is moving along. And I'm just so grateful about where I am in my life. And I'm so happy with the life that I'm leading. So am I where I expected myself to be? That's like a hard question to answer because my expectation changes like every couple months. But yeah, I don't know. I felt grateful for where I am in my life, and yet I feel like life is running away from me because, again, in my head, I'm still 17, and the fact that it's been 6 years since I was 17, and considering what my life would be like when I went into college, what would life be like after college, what people would I be surrounded with, like those were all such big question marks, and a lot of those question marks have been answered because I'm at a different point in that timeline, but still people ended up being so different from what I expected them to be, and I'm incredibly grateful for the adventure that is living in life. And as like woo-woo as that sounds, I really do appreciate all the things that happen to me, and I want to practice living in the moment more because it feels like I'm at such a good point and I'm surrounded by such incredible people. Why not enjoy where I am? But still, I have so much like internal anxiety that I wish I could tackle, and I get so upset with myself about all this anxiety and all this questioning that I'm constantly undergoing, because even when I'm trying to exist in peace, I know that I'm existing in a state of constant anxiety, and it is like debilitating. And I think I thought that by 23 I'd be self-assured and grounded in a way that would help me dispense of that anxiety. But if anything, my anxiety's gotten bigger because I'm responsible for everything that happens in my life now. And I guess that's something that I just, I don't know, failed to consider when I was thinking about it at 17. I also want to talk about the things that I learned by 23. I've learned a lot. I feel like I've sequestered a lot of wisdom. Am I using that word right? And there's a lot of thoughts that I would share. One of which being that truly people and the way they behave is a reflection of them and how they feel about themselves and their position, and it has very, very little to do with you. Unless you are like completely self-unaware and you don't have people around you that will tell you when you're wrong. I've just encountered some really great and incredible people, and I've encountered people that are like very bitter for seemingly no reason, and it makes you doubt yourself. But at the end of the day, like the way people behave with you and how weirdly they can handle some situations, it's really none of your business. And though it may feel like it affects you, the only thing it really affects is your emotional state. So if you like don't pay as much attention and give it so much significance, it won't really affect you that much. So that's one piece of advice. The other piece of advice is that there is no right way to live, and there is no right thing that will make you happy. Like I thought when I was younger that if I earned this much money, or I went to this school, or I was doing this or I was that, it would make me happy. But that's just like not the case at all. The things I find make me happy are truly like my friends and the time I have with myself to paint and read and just enjoy like quiet moments in my life. Also just like accepting myself and my personality and knowing myself enough to say no to certain things. Like I used to think, again, when I was 17, all my friends would constantly be going out or they would be dating, and I would be like, I wouldn't be into what they were doing, but I would do it regardless because I thought like this was what was considered fun. And I've gotten older and it has not become any more fun, and I think I found a lot more people who kind of agree with me in that. And I would just say, you know, if my younger self asked me, you know, what do I do about all this? I would say literally just accept yourself for who you are, and you're gonna find life to be much more enjoyable if you just know yourself and know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and don't go along with things just because other people are going along with it. I feel like I should give one more piece of advice. It's almost like I'm talking to little me. Don't beat yourself into a pulp because nothing is that serious. I feel like I remember when I, again, was like 15, 16, I would look at myself and I would be so insecure about all the different aspects of myself. I would just like beat myself into a pulp over it. And now I look back on it and I was like, you were great at 17. If I met a 17-year-old like you, I'd be like, wow, you're great. Like, you know, you should exhibit grace and kindness towards yourself even more so than you do for other people, because you know yourself best. And I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to constantly pick away at your appearance, pick away at your personality, you're never gonna please anyone or everyone. The only person that you're constantly gonna have to please is basically yourself, because you're the only person that spends 24/7 with you. Yeah, I would just tell myself, and this is a piece of advice I think I'd give to myself now, is just chill, slow down. Your appearance and tiny moments that you blow up out of proportion, they don't matter. It's kind of taught me to be so much more appreciative of like me, myself, my body. It's funny because when I just remember having this moment like a few years ago when I was walking around a museum and I was sketching different statues, and a lot of the statues that I was sketching were like Greco-Roman statues and were very like voluptuous women and men, and just like the fact that I was sketching them and I was enjoying like all the curvature and I was exploring, you know, how the human body moves and how it's being represented. I was like, this is beautiful. Like, why, if I can think this is beautiful, why do I have to berate myself if I look like that, or if I even have a hint of that? It just makes no sense, and there's like no room in your life if you want to be happy and productive and just like live a fulfilling life for that kind of self-hatred, because it just gives you more anxiety. And even though at 23 I still feel like I'm kind of like holding my breath and I'm still so anxious and battling a lot of stuff, I also in a sense feel free from so much worry that I had when I was younger. This kind of like shift in my mindset I feel is only going to help me going forward in life, because it's all about where you place your attention. I think it's all about where you place significance, what events, what actions. As long as you stick to your like moral ground and you know who you are as a person, nothing can really cut you down. Like, you will always find a place for yourself. Oh, the last thing that I do want to mention that 17-year-old me, Jesus, probably would never buy into is that you really don't need a lot. Like, you don't really care about like shopping and brands and any of that stuff as much as you used to care about it. I realize I'm such a minimalist person. Like, I really don't pay attention much to things around me. I pay attention to like ideas and stuff like that. And though I do love fashion and love to shop and things like that, it's just not in the same way, and I don't place any significance on it. And, you know, my mom will buy furniture for my room, or like buy me this, buy me that, and it's stuff I wouldn't even think about, like stuff I could live without. Like, I could live, I don't know. I don't know how else to express it. Like, just minimalist. I find myself like taking after my dad in that way, which is funny too, like the traits you inherit from your parents as you get older. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful to somebody, anybody, and if it wasn't, that's okay too. I'm gonna go back to the beach, but I hope you enjoy, subscribe. Oh, and also, I'm building a company. It's called Overlap. It's a political media company. I hope you guys follow along. I'm gonna release, keep itching myself. I'm gonna release a video talking more about Overlap and what I hope to do with it and things of that sort. But for right now, I hope you guys stick around. My name is Katya, by the way. Nice to meet you.